Hi everyone, welcome back to Crafting at Whimsy Wonderland. My name is Stacy. Today I'm going to show you how I like to make two-tiered trays from a set of burner covers from the Dollar Tree. So I have my set of burner covers, and then I went to Walmart and picked up one of these wooden 7-inch circles. I actually picked up 2 of them because I'm not sure if I want to use 1 or 2. So I went ahead and got 2. These are 97 cents, so if the Dollar Tree had them, I would buy it there, but they don't, so you can't. What I'm going to use that 7-inch circle for is to firm up the metal, because this is really flexible. And so, yes, it's going to add a little bit to the price of your project, but if you glue this onto the bottom in the center, then it just kind of firms up the metal and gives you a sturdier tray for holding things, and it's not going to warp as much on you. So you have the choice of also doing that to the top tray as well. You'll see a little bit of the thickness, but it's not that much, and so it doesn't really affect it too terribly much. So the first thing you need to do is get all the stickers off. Oh, and then I also have one of these chunky round circle ornaments from the crafting section, and this is going to be my foot. It's going to go on top of my wooden circle like that. That just gives the tray a little lift, and you can wipe, you know, if it's on your counter, you can wipe underneath of it without having to actually lift up and move the tray. These have a stapler, a tag on them that's stapled for hanging purposes, so you'll need a screwdriver to help take that off. Wow, this one is on there good. Don't leave that staple in, because if you do, you're not going to get a good flat surface to glue to. So I just work on getting one end out if I can't get them both, and then use my pliers to pull out the other. And I'm going to go ahead and prep this one, because I think I am going to put one on both burner covers. Now, if you didn't want to use the wood, you could make these work. It just won't be for heavy duty things, but you could double up your burner covers as well, and that would make it a little bit stronger. But I just like to have good sturdy things. If I'm going to go to the trouble of making them and all the trouble of painting them, I want them to be sturdy enough to be usable. And yeah, the burner covers are an economical way because it's only $1 for the whole thing, but you know, so technically I've got $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 into this, plus paint and glue. So for a nice tiered tray, I think that's a reasonable price. So I'm willing to pay that. Now these are really super shiny, so I'm going to take my sandpaper and I'm just going to scratch it up. And I want the paint to be able to adhere to it really well also. So I'm going to just get a good sand edge around here and inside. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and, well, I don't think that's going to scratch the glaze up at all. Make sure you get the sticker off the bottom of your vase, because you don't want to be having that peeling off after you've already glued everything together. Alright, when I paint these, I'll be using Rust-Oleum spray paint that has the paint and the primer together. It's about $3 a can at Walmart. And I'll be giving it 2 to 3 coats depending on how it covers. I'm just going to give a light sanding to all of my wood pieces. And because I'm gluing it with E6000, I won't be able to paint until tomorrow. It's going to need time to dry. Everything is sanded and ready to go, so I'm going to grab a couple of cotton pads. I just picked these up at Dollar Tree. They're just the round cotton pads that you use for cleaning your face. I think I even got this alcohol at the Dollar Tree. Alcohol's been hard to come by. It's finally starting to get back onto store shelves. If you don't have alcohol but you have nail polish remover, you could probably get away with using that. But you just want to make sure that all of your surfaces are clean from dust so that when you glue them together, they'll stick and the paint won't get messed up from the dust. Make sure you clean both edges of your center support. Try not to handle it too much afterwards, because you don't want the oils on there. And then I'm just doing a quick rub on the wood to get the dust off from the sanding. Alright, turn both of these over using my E6000. And I need a little card to lay it on. I'm going to put some E6000 around the edge of the wood piece. And then I'm going to also put some across the middle. You want this to be well adhered to your pan. The whole purpose of putting this on there is for it to make the pan, the burner cover, more sturdy. So I've got glue all over it. And then I need to get it centered. You can eyeball it, you can measure it, totally up to you. Okay. Then I'm going to do the same for the bottom. I just flipped it over so that the side that has the little hole from the staple is being glued to the pan so that I don't have a rough spot on my tray bottom. Okay. Glue everywhere. Put it on, center it. I like to twist it a little, that gets your glue spread out evenly. I forgot to twist this one. Just move it around a little bit so that it spreads. And then, if you're a little unsure, just it's close. It's not exactly centered, but it's close. And then I'm going to measure this one. Okay. All right. Then I have my block to be my foot. I'm going to go ahead and glue that on. You can also use wood glue for this because you're doing wood to wood, but I've got my E6000 out, so I'm going to go ahead and just go with that since it has to cure anyway. Twist so that you spread your glue and then measure. Perfect on that one. So that is ready to go. And see how much sturdier that looks already? Okay. And while that one is setting for a minute, I'm going to go ahead and glue this. And I want to figure out the center before I this way. Perfect. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and mark where that needs to go. Okay. Then I am going to glob up as much E6000 as I can onto here. Okay, and I'm going to place it down. This will get painted, so it's okay. And I'm going to let that just set. This is going to need about 15-20 minutes at least before I try to attach it to this. Okay, so you got it. Take your time. Don't try to put all of the layers together at once. You will be sorry because everything will slip and slide. That's why a lot of people use hot glue to hold it together, but you got to be careful when you put hot glue on with the E6000, because if they mix, they cancel each other out and they will both peel right back off. If you're doing that using the hot glue, if you hear any crackling at all when you put the hot glue onto the E6000 area, that means they've mixed. That crackling tells you they are mixing. So if that happens, I would just wipe it off and start again. That's just been my experience. And also hot glue builds up and you'll not get as solid of an adhesion if you are using the hot glue along with the E6000. E6000 just needs a thin coat and it'll be fine if you let it cure. It stinks, so you're going to have a stinky craft room for a little bit, but I'm going to let this sit for a little bit, and then I think we're going to go get some dinner, and then I'll come back and put this onto here. Okay, just take your time. It matters. If you can put a little weight into there, that's even better. Okay? All right, I will be back when these have had time to dry a little bit. Okay, so my bottom support has dried, and so has the support for the upper tier. And so now I have marked and measured the center of my bottom tier so that I can glue that on and get it centered pretty easily. So what I'm going to do is flip this over, and using my E6000, sometimes you need pliers to get that open. Using my E6000, I'm going to put a nice thick band of it around the bottom of this vase. And this will need to cure for a good 12 hours or so at least before I try to paint it. So hopefully tomorrow I can paint it. Hopefully the weather will cooperate. We've been having some intermittent snowstorms, but I think tomorrow's supposed to be a clear day. So hoping for that. All right, I'm just going to stick that down. Wiggle it back and forth a little bit. And I'm going to just leave that to dry. I'm going to go ahead and put some weight on the top of it, just an alcohol bottle, rubbing alcohol bottle, so that it can just press down and take the time it needs to dry. And then once this is dry, I will go ahead and spray paint it outside. I will not film that because I don't have the setup to be able to film that outside in a good way. So anyway, that's the next step. And when you see it again, it will be painted. And then we'll finish it up. All right, guys. Here is my burner cover two-tiered tray. I went ahead and spray painted it in this bright turquoise. I do not plan to leave it this color. I'm going to do some distressing on it, but I wanted you to see how it turned out looking. Okay, there's my bottom, and these are getting thinner and thinner. Every time I buy them, they're a little bit more wobbly, so putting this 7-inch circle from Walmart on it and then the little foot from the Dollar Tree has really shored them up. And I don't think it looks bad having this little extra layer, but it just feels like a more solid piece than one I tried to make without them. And so anytime I make a tiered tray now, I go ahead and put these pieces on. I even put these pieces on the bottom of my last 3-tiered tray, which had a pizza pan at the bottom, and then then a pie plate, then a cake plate, or pie tin and a cake pan. And so I didn't put these on the cake pan and the pie pan, just on the bottom of the pizza pan, and that shored up that pizza pan and made it a lot more sturdy as well. So consider that. It's 97 cents, so it is going to bring up the price of your project, but I think you're going to be happier with the piece in the end, because right now it does not wiggle where these things are glued together. And I was afraid that if I didn't secure that up and make it more solid, that eventually with movement and picking up, that this seal of the glue would break, and I didn't want that to happen. Now, another thing that I have been considering, but I just haven't been able to find the piece I want, is I was thinking about putting another piece on here and a little decorative piece on top of that, not to be a tray, but just to be kind of like a handle. But I want a rooster, and I'm going to need that rooster to be just the right rooster. So I'm still looking. I could glue it upside down like that and glue the rooster up on top of here, but I wanted it to be more tapered as it got up and went smaller. So if I find my rooster, I will probably add that and paint it, even if it's later on. So anyway, this is where we're at right now. So the next thing that I want to do is to go ahead and distress it. And the way I'm going to do that is with some watered down white chalk paint. Now, when I make my watered down paint, I just get a little container or bowl of some sort, even a lid of something, some kind would work. And I just use whatever water I have around. Down here in my craft room, I usually have a bottle of water that I refill and use over and over and over. So, remember that little red bowl from my succulent video that didn't work out so well? I'm going to use that. Be right back. Okay. When I do the whitewashing, I like to make sure I have an apron on, because this can sometimes get messy. I've poured about 1.5 tablespoons to 2 tablespoons of white paint into my bowl, and I'm just going to use a paintbrush to mix it. I'm going to put about half as much water in to start, so about 1 tablespoon or so of water, and I'm just going to mix this. I want to make sure I get all the lumps of paint out so I get an even consistency. I don't want to pick up a glob of paint and have a really thick smear across my piece. Start with just a little bit of water, get that mixed in, and then if you want it thinner, add a little bit more. Don't try to add all of your water at once, because it seems to be harder to mix in that way. I think that the paint reacts a little bit with the water and kind of starts to cure a little bit. I don't know. It's like the consistency of the actual paint changes when you add water. Not just getting thinner, it just changes. It's like the whatever chalky part in there starts to soak it up, and it just changes a lot. Okay, I'm just going to rub this brush off, or wipe it off, and I'm going to set it aside while I do this. Okay, this paint is a pretty smooth finish right now, and I don't want that. My paint won't stick. So I'm just going to take a little piece of sandpaper, and I'm just going to knock the gloss off just the tiniest little bit. Then I always do my washing I kind of just like whitewash my trays a lot, and that's how I get a good like weathered look on it. I just dip it into, I dip a paper towel folded up in fours into the paint, let it just drip off, and then I'm just going to wash this on. Okay. Kind of pay attention to how your strokes go. They might end up showing a little bit. Don't worry about too terribly much being perfect though. And you're only going to do one tray at a time. And I'm going to go ahead and hit the middle piece a little bit here. Go ahead and trying to get this into the camera for you. I'm just getting some paint on there. I've already got it on my wrists. Just trying to take that blue down a shade. So underneath is really messy looking right now. I'm going to grab my wiping off paper towel. I'm just going to wipe all the way around, softening it up. Remember, you can always put more back on. It's just a process. So now that's what the bottom looks like. And then here on the top, I always start with the crease. And the little corners. I don't like having that big puddle of white sitting on there. You can choose to wipe this off in straight strokes, round strokes, whatever look you prefer. I'm not getting rid of my watered down paint just yet because I might want another layer of depth on there. So I'm going to take just a round stencil brush and I'm going to dip in to my antique wax. It's Waverly Antique Wax. Okay, and I have the lid and I'm just going to kind of dab off in the lid a little bit and dry it off on my paper towel. So I want this to be ever so subtle. I'm going to start on the middle. Okay, and I'm just kind of, I want this really dry. This is almost too wet. I'm just going to brush it on. Don't worry, I'm going to be brushing it back off as well. Just getting it on there right now. If you don't want your tray to be distressed, you absolutely do not need to do this part. I just was a little unhappy with how bright the blue came out. And then I'm going to grab another paper towel. And I'm just going to kind of rub it in. And even though I don't need it wiped off, I'm wiping it just to kind of blend it in and soften it up. Okay, you can totally decide if you liked it better with without the wax or if you like it better with the wax. It's totally up to you. And even though I put wax on it, I am still going to I will still be putting a clear sealant on it before I use it, just to protect it. Okay, now I'm just kind of stippling a little extra of the watered down white paint. It kind of blends in a little bit with the antique, and it just kind of gives it another look. If you want something to look old and aged and weathered, it takes layers of paint. It's just no way of getting around it. You can't just spray it on and hope for the best, because it just takes time to build up if you want it to look natural. It's a process of putting it on and wiping it off and putting it on and wiping it off. Now, here's my controversial. It's like I've gone to all this work, and sometimes I get in trouble with people. They don't like my ideas. This is my old antique wax bottle. And it seems to be like the bottle of oil in the Bible that just keeps giving. I just keep adding water to it because I want this thin, glaze-like appearance to the top. So all that's been left in there is basically what's coating the bottle. I put water in, I shake it up, and then I have this really thin, watery glaze, and I just dip right into the bottle and I just wash it on. It's very thin, it's just water with a little bit of color in it. Some people say, I liked it better before you did that. Well, if you really want it to look aged, this will help. Let it dry for a minute. And soak into the paint that's been put on there. Now this won't work. I've not had good luck with it, putting it on top of spray paint. But once I have the spray paint on, and I've done a little bit of distressing with the chalk paint, this will soak into the chalk paint nicely. So I'm just kind of slathering it on and letting it run down this middle piece. It'll take some off as it goes, and that's okay. It'll darken up some as it goes, and that's okay too. Then you just grab a rag or a paper towel and just don't wipe. Blot. And because that's water, it's going to run and accumulate in spots where water would have ran to and accumulated over time, and you get this natural rusty looking loveliness. Just make sure that you blot, not wipe. If you wipe, it's going to smear it all up. I love how it's puddling right there. It kind of looks like it rusted. Now, should I ever finally get this bottle clean, I'll probably just put a few drops of antique wax in there and keep adding the water. It's literally just barely colored water. Okay, I think I'm kind of liking that. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. I'm going to leave it. If you don't like how yours has turned out at this point, you can let it dry and then repaint it. You can let it dry and add another color. There's options. You don't have to throw it away just because you don't like what you did to it. If you like how it's looking with the brown, add a little more brown and see if you can get to a spot where you're happy with it. If you don't like the brown, see if you can spray it down with some water and wipe it off. Chalk paint, until it's completely cured, is pretty susceptible to water, so if you don't like it, change it and it'll be fine. You're never stuck with something you don't like just because of how it turned out. You can always, always, always do something more to it. Can't undo it, really, but you can add another layer that might help undo that layer. Now this does look kind of tarnished and kind of yucky, but I kind of like that look. Oh, when I poured that, it ran. I don't like that. Okay, now this just needs to sit level and dry so that the paint stays in the area where it's at. Okay, I don't know, we might dry brush another color of blue over the top just to bring out more of the blue, and we'll see, but we're going to let this dry completely. Okay, time for the final coat. Now remember that bowl full of white chalk paint that I had watered down? Well, it sat out overnight and kind of thickened up a little bit. So I added a little bit of blue into it and a little more water, stirring it together. I was just kind of playing with color issues here on the bottom. And it's very watery, and I'm just going to go ahead and paint the entire piece, doing one section at a time with this watered down version. And then I'm just going to kind of really care about the circle too much and just worrying about mostly the edge, getting the edge what I want. I want it to be blue, but I don't want it to be so strong of a blue. Okay. And I just got a little, I think, too much distressing going on down here. So now I'm just painting the middle support again. And some of the color is blending in with the brown, and that's okay. Oops, I dropped my paper towel on my mouse, computer mouse. Just kind of dabbing off the support in the middle. This is kind of making it look like aged plaster with a, but it's just got a hint of blue in it. And the pouncing with the paper towel just kind of takes off a little paint, leaves the texture behind. Flipping it over so that I can do the bottom of the top tray. The more water you put in your paint, the longer you'll have to work with it. Okay, now just stop, and then we gotta let it dry. I know it seems like I'm completely covering up all of the work I did earlier. I kind of am a little bit, but all of those previous layers are going to show through this one and add to the look and the softness. The only way I've been able to find to get things to look old is by taking the time to do all of the different layers and to just keep adding and working with it until it comes to what you want it to be. And I just wanted this to be very textured and just kind of marbleized a little bit. I wanted it to be blue, but I didn't want it to be that obnoxious blue that it was before. That was just way too bright. It was even way too bright for my Pioneer Woman stuff. I have a lot of Pioneer Woman stuff in my decor in my kitchen, and I'm often pulling colors from that to make my decor pieces. But this one was just too bright. But I think this more muddled color will fit in nicely. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit here and give you a closer look of what the surface looks like. My camera does not zoom well, so let's see if I can lift it. Okay, so that's what it looks like. It kind of has a look of blue stone right now. The blue is kind of a little bit gray, so I think it's going to look nice once it's all dry. Then I can get, once it's all dry, I can get some clear coat on there. Put my finger in it right there, so I had to fix it. Okay. And I'm seeing a little puddle here. The nice thing about watered down paint is it soaks up nicely into your paper towels too. You don't have to wipe it. And just lay your paper towel on it and it'll soak it up. And the different shapes that you hold your paper towel also can determine what the texture is on the bottom. So I always like to move my paper towel around and crunch it up in different directions as I'm working the piece. I'm going to set that aside and let it dry, and once it's dry I'll clear coat it, and then I'll come back and show you how it turned out. Alright, everything has dried. This is the finish that I have on my tray. Once it got dried and everything, I sprayed it down with a couple of coats of clear coat, just clear spray paint. So the bottom's not beautiful. It's alright. It's not going to be seen. I got the edges that maybe would be seen a little bit. I got them done up all nice and neat. Everything's been sealed, and I love the color that this turned out. It's it took a lot of layers and it took some time, but if you want something to look old and worn, it takes time. And I love the way that the top of this came out. It just looks so wrinkled and weathered, like layer after layer of paint has been scraped off and put back on, and it's just, I'm just in love with how this turned out. Okay, so again, this is 2 burner covers from the Dollar Tree, 2 97-cent wood circles, 7-inch wood circles from Walmart. This is one of the chunky ornaments from the Dollar Tree Crafter Square section. Glued them all together. This is a vase, it was gray, from the Dollar Tree. Alright, so all of this together I think turned out really nice, and it's just a small tray to go into a dark little corner I have in my living room on a shelf that will hopefully brighten it up, and I can't wait to get it all decorated up with some farmhouse stuff. So anyway, this is my tray. Let me know what you're thinking about it in the comment section below. Will you try to make one of these for yourselves? Have you tried to make a burner cover tray and just found that they were too flimsy? I did, and I ended up taking it all apart and adding these circles in, and now it is good and sturdy. I could put some weight in there and it would be just fine. Okay, so let me know what you're thinking about it. Give it a thumbs up if you like the project. That helps my channel to grow. And come back and see what I have in store. I've got some ideas coming up for some more of the calendar art from those calendars we were all so crazy about a few months back before Christmas. And I'm going to be using the strawberry page and the lemon page to make some decor for my spring and summer kitchen stuff. So be checking back for those if that's something you're interested in. I also have a project coming up with 2 farmhouse scales that are taking me on a different journey than what I thought it would be. Anyway, stay tuned for those. They are coming up soon. Let me know what you've been thinking about this one. All right, this has been Crafting at Whimsy Wonderland. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you next time.